Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reconvene Sessions. I'm happy as always to see so many people joining us today from around the globe, and I appreciate y'all waiting who are in the waiting room, waiting for us to get started. I can't wait to get into our conversations today with a few amazing event creators. To get started, my name is Alex Gallinari. I am a brand and community marketing manager at Eventbrite. I will be your host today, and I'm coming to you live from our headquarters in stormy San Francisco. I got soaked on my way into work today, but we do need the rain, so I'm not mad about it. Eventbrite's Reconvene Sessions. It's an ongoing event series covering what's new, what's next, and what really matters for event creators. These events are really meant to empower event creators to share experiences building and hosting events while also passing along useful strategies for your events and businesses. So really quickly, just some housekeeping. In order to participate in the chat today, you'll need to create a YouTube channel. And if you haven't done it already, don't worry. It's really, really easy. It only takes a few seconds. And all you need to do is follow the prompts on YouTube. And at this point, I normally ask those of you who are logged in to tell us where you're joining from, but I'm going to switch it up today. And today's prompt is, who would be your ideal partner for your events? It could be a brand, an event organization, an individual. Tell us in the chat. And the reason I ask this question is because today's session is all about expanding your reach with strategic partnerships. Building a business and expanding an event series often involves working with other established brands and organizations that will help you tap into new ideas and new audiences. It's work that relies heavily on relationships, establishing those relationships, maintaining them, and growing them. But that can be a little bit tricky. So today we're bringing together 3 event creators that do this really well, and they're going to share their experience and advice with us. So let's take a look at what we have in store for the next hour. So first up, we'll chat with Christina Daniels, who is the Director of Residencies and Classes at the Brooklyn-based nonprofit PioneerWorks. Christina has done incredible work partnering with fellow nonprofits and other local organizations to bring in new programming and new audiences. And she's going to talk us through how she finds and manages those partnerships. Then we'll hear from Greg Harris, who is the director of Oakland First Fridays Festival. This is a monthly event that shuts down one of the busiest streets in the city. And Greg works really closely with the city government and local businesses to make that happen. And we'll talk to him about how he gets and also keeps everybody on board and engaged. And finally, we'll be joined by the co-founder of the greatest sneaker show on earth, and that's Alan Vinogradov. To grow SneakerCon, Alan partners with some of the biggest names in the sneaker and streetwear industry, and he will offer his advice for engaging and nurturing these corporate sponsors. And we're really excited to have our speakers in the event with us today. They'll be in the chat, so feel free to ask them questions during the presentations, and they'll do their best to jump in and answer you live. And then at the end of it all, we're going to bring everybody together for a live Q&A. So definitely stick around. And I just want to mention that while we have these 3 expert speakers on our virtual stage, I also want to remind everybody that there's a wealth of knowledge in this chat right now. So I encourage you to connect and share ideas throughout today's event. All right, before we get started, I want to make sure that we're set up for success today. We are a community of creators, and we strive to create community for others through events. So we want to model what community looks like. Let's encourage one another, let's be curious, and let's be grounded in the spirit of learning. The chat will be monitored. Harassment of any kind will not be tolerated. And a full recording of today's session will be posted with closed captions after the event on Eventbrite's YouTube channel. And lastly, if you're sharing anything from today's session, let's use our hashtag reconvene so that we can all connect really easily. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Christina Daniels. As I mentioned, Christina is the Director of Residencies and Classes at PioneerWorks in Brooklyn, New York, where she supports artists in residences programs and produces continuing arts education classes. Prior to PioneerWorks, Christina worked at the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, the Casman Gallery, and many more. She has a BA in Art History and Communications from the University of Michigan and a Master's in Arts Administration from Teachers College at Columbia. Please join me in welcoming Christina Daniels. Hey, Christina, thank you so much for talking with me today, talking with us today. Super excited to dig into your work with PioneerWorks. I know I gave everybody a little bit of an intro, but I would love to hear it from you as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with PioneerWorks and the types of events that you host?
Yeah, so I'm the director of residencies and classes. So I specifically do programs that highlight our different artists and residents in music, technology, and visual arts, often through adult classes and other smaller programs.
Gotcha. And I think my first question for you is, as a nonprofit, is there anything special that you think about or you do when you are seeking out a partnership?
Yeah, I really try to think about how we can be, peer to peer. So, what can I offer, and how can someone meet me in return? We never want to think of ourselves as like um, like we're this big institution, so we can only offer something to others. Usually, we find that our partners have a lot of hidden resources that we didn't even realize until we kind of like talk through what we'd really like to see happen.
Wow, I love that. Keeps getting that mutual benefit. Um, how do you know which partners are the right ones? I hear a lot of people saying make sure that you're working with brands and organizations that are mission aligned. And I'm curious, what does that mean for you to be mission aligned?
Yeah, I think that's something I've learned through trial and error. Like a lot of times I realize I'm not on the same page, or like early in my career, like certain partnerships, we weren't on the same page because we didn't clarify our goals like through each step of getting to the partnership. So like really reiterating, I want X to happen, and X looks like this. Does that look like success to you? And like, how do we foster this together? And as things move along, making sure that there's touch points for that.
Yeah, I love that. That upfront alignment is so important to make sure that there's success in the partnership as well. Because if you're not aligned at the start, you get further on, there are going to be miscommunications, and making sure that you're truly on the same page and what success looks like is so important. And want to dig into that, like what success looks like for a second. So there's so many different organizations out there that I'm assuming that you can partner with when you are looking for a partner. I assume that you're looking at the communities that that partner reaches. And for you, how do you know that you're tapping into the right communities for PioneerWorks?
So we did this big exercise around our organization's values, and then that kind of led us to determining what our priority communities are. And to preface, I've been at PioneerWorks for 5 years, and the organization itself is 10 years old. And I think this is a lifelong work of an organization, and it will always evolve and change. But like doing exercises like that internally, and then asking the same from a partner is really helpful to realize whether your priority communities are complementary, whatever that may be. So, like for example, one of our priority communities that we determined was parents of um, Red Hook school children. Um, we do a lot of school programs where they'll come in for tours and see exhibitions and do like little mini workshops. And so the students are engaged, but we also want to engage the parents to like take them outside of school time and get them excited about things that are happening. So like we'll do an exhibition of student work. And so the other parents want to come through and see their babies work in a gallery. So tapping people where we can achieve and meet that audience is really important.
I love that idea of priority communities, and that's an awesome example of one that maybe isn't so obvious at first without going through that exercise. And I'm actually really curious. Can you give us a peek inside what that process was like for PioneerWorks? Like if somebody else was thinking, I want to identify who my priority communities are. Like what's that first step in that process of getting to where you're now like confident about I know what my priority communities are for PioneerWorks.
Yeah, it was actually like a very simple, like now looking back at it, process, but it took a long time. And like the first step for us, and I'm sure there are many ways to go about it, but we just looked at a bunch of our programs that we had laid out for the year and tried to see where there was overlap as far as the communities that we were trying to serve. And we found that one, there was like way too many. And, I think that is noble, but we also want to be specific in our actions so we can really do the best and then really think about the different touches that we want to do from like light touch to deeper touch. So kind of seeing those overlaps between our programs and really seeing like, oh, parents of school age children or artists in the Brooklyn area and like being really specific about this. It really helped us to determine what we need to do next as far as programming and who we need to partner with.
Yeah, that's awesome. It reminds me actually, when we recently hosted our Reconvene Summit, Seth Godin shared that if you try to reach everybody, you won't end up reaching anyone. So I love that specificity that you're creating. So, and I appreciate that little peek behind the curtain of how things work at PioneerWorks. I want to dig into some of your other partnerships, and one of the ones that I'm actually aware of is your partnership with Worthless Studios. But I won't jump the gun here. I would love to hear from you. Tell everybody a little bit about what your partnership is with Worthless Studios, and if you can talk to us about how that partnership came about and what the benefits to PioneerWorks have been so far.
Definitely. So Worthless Studios is an artist studio in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and they have been they started out as like a fabrication studio and then started doing these like larger scale projects and started to like public projects, and they started to do more of those. And one of their first ones was called the Free Film Project. And so they took this Airstream that was outfitted into a dark room across the US. They gave people free film and then they asked people to return it and they developed their film for them. And then it ultimately became this really cool book. And there were several different iterations. There was Free Film USA, Free Film Canal, I believe, Lower Manhattan. And then we partnered on the first stop of a free film, New York. So they're doing like Brooklyn and the Bronx and all that. But we reached out to them because one, we had partnered with them at our monthly event called Second Sundays just to highlight some of their work because we really admire them. So that was just like a little touchstone. But then we were trying to think about ways to activate our dark room, which is a two-person max dark room that serves our artists and residents. But we wanted to have that touchstone to the greater public, but it's not really possible just because of size. So we were thinking about this need of how do we get more people into this space and think about photography in new ways. So we reached out to Worthless Studios, and so we provided, educational programming. They provided the space and the resources, and then together we collaborated on a more in-depth series around highlighting the work, and then there will be a book out of it. So it was a very fruitful experience that was ultimately really simple, but that fed both of our needs. Worthless Studios wasn't planning to do a New York iteration until we reached out, and now they're reaching out to all these other different partners all over the city, and so it's become a bigger thing because of our interest in the good work that they're doing.
That's amazing, and it sounds like you've partnered a few times with them, and it's a partnership that's going to grow. I'm really curious what those initial conversations were like. Like you mentioned that they weren't planning on a New York stop. Did you have to pitch a lot to them to show the value? Like what were those initial conversations like?
Yeah, the initial conversation was really just like we want to get more people into the dark room and like learn more about the dark room. And we hear you have this really cool Airstream. Like, is there something we can do around this? And then we were talking about all their past projects, and then it kind of came to be like, have you ever done one like more holistically in Brooklyn? And they're like, no, but we should start and use like Red Hook as like a proof of concept. And that's how it came to be.
Wow, so almost more of a brainstorming exercise with them, not necessarily prescriptive of, hey, we have this thing that we want you involved in. It's like we know that there are opportunities to partner together. We don't know exactly what those are. Here's one starting point of we want to make more use of our dark room. Like let's think together about how we can work together. And I would imagine the size of the organizations are relatively similar. Like PioneerWorks might be a little bit bigger than Worthless Studios, but it wasn't like either organization was inaccessible and they were open to speaking with you from the start.
Right. Yeah. I would even say like Worthless Studios is a lot smaller. They're newer. But I think even so, they had so much to offer us, the like older, like more established organization. So I think it was really cool one to think about just like ways that even unmatched in, as far as size, but partners can co-create together.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Well, congrats on a very successful partnership, and I'll keep an eye out for that book coming out later. Um, I got one more question for you, and it's again pretty specific to the nonprofit space because I know that grants are such an important thing for nonprofit organizations as a big way to raise funding for programming. And I would love to hear your kind of process for going about finding grants. How do you apply to grants? How do you like what do you even include in your application to make sure that you win those different grants? But let's start from the start of like how you go about finding different grants that you might want to apply to.
Yeah, there are a number of like really wonderful resources, and it's a matter of like doing the legwork. It's like checking out all the databases, looking at where institutions that you admire, like who's funding them. A lot of like searching for bibliographies, kind of things, and then seeing if opportunities are open to more open to the public, or like like you have to be invited to apply. So just doing your legwork in that way, and then also making sure that you're not trying to pigeonhole into just an opportunity, like making sure that it really does serve those priority communities, your needs, their needs. I think something that I've learned across my career is like just because there are funds available and it like kind of fits doesn't mean you should necessarily go for it. It should be, maybe to use the term from the last question, it should be really kind of co-created. Um, and sometimes that takes finessing in your language for you to tell the funder, like, this is a good fit. Like, let me give you an opportunity by, like, you wouldn't necessarily think it's in these categories, but it is because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm. Are there any other specifics that you would recommend including in an application for a grant?
Um, a lot of the like really being able to cite your sources, so like getting anecdotal examples from participants, like in the moment when it's like fresh in people's mind. Getting really beautiful documentation can go so far. Getting program surveys, which is like very easy to do through Eventbrite, like really just having everything logged and documented, and just like easy to message and package out to whoever is interested, to prove that like, yes, this is a really great opportunity that meets these needs, and like I have it in a soundbite.
Right. So really be buttoned up about what you've done to show what you can do. I like
Exactly.
that. And I'm curious, like, are there fundings and different types of amounts? Like, what do you see as the benefits for applying to grants, just generally outside of earning funding? Are there other benefits to going through the legwork of making those applications?
It's good experience, like grant writers like have full on careers supporting bigger organizations, just being able to navigate these systems. And while sometimes it's you're putting a lot out there without getting a lot back, it's good to know like how things get done by having experience with writing grants, whether they're successful or not, but like also um, taking the time to hone your message and say like, maybe this didn't get I didn't get funding from this, but like why? Do I need to clarify what I'm trying to do? What am I trying to do? There's always those steps. Each each moment, each touch point, you really need to check in and make sure you are clear about what you're going for.
Right. Get those reps in because you'll get better. Practice makes perfect. So yeah, to keep working. I love that. Even the ones that are small, it's good to hone your own message. Christina, I appreciate you chatting with us a little bit today. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in a bit.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you again, Christina. I'm going to do my best to summarize. There was so much in that conversation. I'm going to do my best to summarize some of the takeaways that I have, which is the first one is that I really liked what you said about identifying your priority communities and having that as one of your main inputs when looking for a partner. Seeking out brands that also speak to that community, I would imagine is likely have a greater chance of actually coming to fruition and will have an obvious mutual benefit. And then you talked about setting the partnership up for success by clarifying your goals with your partner. Really take the time to reiterate what success looks like for both parties and align on how you can both achieve it. And then, of course, the last bit of that conversation, a big part of the nonprofit world is receiving grants. And I appreciate you emphasizing the need to really do the legwork here. Look at other nonprofits that you admire and see who funds them and what opportunities there might be for all of you out there to also apply to. So thank you again, Christina. And next up is Greg Harris. So Greg is the festival director for Oakland First Fridays. It's a monthly festival that brings together tens of thousands of Oakland residents. He's also an engineer, producer, and writer with more than a decade of experience in event coordination. And aside from managing event logistics and security, his work includes implementing outreach strategies, securing sponsorships, and establishing collaborations with artists, donors, and even volunteers. This guy does everything, and I'm excited to share our conversation with you. Please welcome Greg Harris. All right, Greg, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, so happy you're here. So happy to chat about all the amazing partnerships that you have built through Oakland First Fridays. And I'd love to just get us started with hearing from you, like what Oakland First Fridays is all about.
So Oakland First Fridays is a festival that brings out the wide world of community to us through arts, paintings, festival, food. We have retail, and we also have entertainment that brings everybody all together. That allows them to have a great time.
I love that. And it's on the first month of every Friday, right? How many people do you get out usually?
Oh, we got a small crew of maybe about 20,000 to 25,000 people. I bring those people over to my house, and we all hang out in the festival area. Just not that many, not that many.
I love the modesty from potentially the future mayor of Oakland. So
Oh, I
I
love that.
appreciate
Vote for me. Vote for me.
Vote for Greg, everybody. I love it. So, Greg, let's jump right in because like a festival with 20,000 that brings together 20,000 people every single month. That's outdoors. It's in a public space. It is a massive project, and I would really love to hear who outside of your like team do you partner with to make that event happen?
Well, we have retail, so we have the vendors that come out and support us, which is we're grateful for those guys that come out. We deal with the health. We deal with the health department. We deal with the police department. We deal with the fire department. We deal with like a lot of city officials besides just the mayor, chief of police. I mean, we deal with quite a few people that allow us to move forward in this festival, which benefits not just Oakland but the whole Bay Area.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a ton of people, and I think it's worth mentioning that you partner with a bunch of government departments, like you mentioned. Every
Yeah.
city is different, and we have event creators from all over the globe joining us today. So we'll do our best to keep our conversation kind of high level, not really specific to how Oakland works, but you have such great expertise in working with different government bodies, and I think that's such useful insight. So I want to get into some of that, and I want you to break it down for us because you mentioned so many different types of partners. You got your vendors, you got Oakland Fire Department, Oakland Police Department. They all have like different needs and different priorities. They probably all care about different things. And I'm
Yes.
curious, like, how do you show your value to each of those different partners so that they're keeping you top of mind?
So let's start with the vendors. The vendors are our first forefront of the line. They're out there, dealing with the community and the participants that come to First Friday. They are important because they start as a booth and they grow into either a food truck or a brick and mortar. So they end up expanding their business
Hmm.
even further than what they've had dreamed of, or maybe making their dreams come true. As far as the government officials, it's relationship building that I've been able to make friends with, communicate with them on a regular basis, just having a regular conversation, treating them like normal people, and that way it comes back to me as well. Um, it's truly incredible to see the police department turn around, which the bridge was broken before I got here, rebuilding that bridge to come back together so they understand that I'm not just here fly by night for one, two, just to make sure that they understand that hey, I'm serious about this relationship that we're building. I'm not just trying to be your friend to be your friend. I really want to understand what's the rights and wrongs that we need to make sure we take place, so everybody can either be safe or we follow the rules, or I fill out the permits correctly and dotting my I's and crossing my T's, making sure everything is done so no one gets in trouble later.
Yeah. And is there any special value that you provide through Oakland First Fridays that you're providing the city that you make sure that like they're aware of to give you the resources that you need to make this happen? Like, is like what? How do you communicate? What's the value of Oakland First Fridays to the city, and how do you express that to those different government departments?
Well, because of the vendors getting licenses and permits and paying their taxes and stuff that's sold, that helps the city in the long run and larger as far as finances. Which everybody worries about finances and situations and things that go forth. We just got hit with the COVID situation, and I hate to mention that situation, but it did bring traveling was less into the city. We didn't have much to bring forth as far as hotels and things being booked. And now we're replenishing that whole situation and making sure that money's coming back around because we get folks from other parts of town or other parts of the country come into First Friday and partner with us
Mm.
together or build their vacation around First Friday itself.
Wow, there's that huge economic value to the
Yes,
city for what
for
you're doing, and not only to the city, but you mentioned that people go from a booth to a brick and mortar, and there's that addition. It's like almost like Oakland First Fridays is an incubator
yeah,
for local businesses that you're connecting to the city through community.
correct, correct. We truly are. There are more of the black and brown businesses that didn't have an opportunity, maybe had a larger dream, but didn't quite know how to get there. Join First Friday, and then 20,000 people is quite a bit, I guess you could say. But selling 10% of that is what 200. You got 200 customers in a day in less than 4 hours or 5 hours of a festival. How can you beat that? Like, how can you really sell for a business that looks great? And most businesses make their rent on the first day, on our day of the festival. So even the businesses, the brick and mortars that are around the festival, they are making rent. They're benefiting from the fact. Downtown Oakland benefiting from the fact. It's quite a bit. Like everybody gets to win. It's a win-win situation for the festival.
Yeah, and behind it all is the community coming together. You got the fire
Yeah,
department, you got the police department hanging out with
yeah.
families and teenagers, and it's
Take
amazing.
pictures, and they got booths to encourage officers. If you want to be an officer or you want to be a fireman, there's booths there to they sign up folks to come in and have a conversation or build a relationship with the community that they've somewhat have been broken in throughout the years. But we're trying to replenish that and make sure everybody comes back together. We all join hands and sing together.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important to give a partner that very clear value as well. And I would
Yeah.
imagine that it's all different, but that recruitment for the police department, that relationship building within the community, like that's what they really care about. And you create that opportunity through First Fridays.
Yes, yes, we do. We really do. First Fridays has been lucky part of that. And we're glad to continue to go forward. We're shooting forward to our 10-year anniversary coming up next year.
Nice.
So we're gonna celebrate. I'm gonna try to celebrate every month. Secretly. I'm letting you guys in a big secret. This month we're doing something special, and we plan to do something great every single month that we can to make sure it stays alive.
Yeah, I love that. Well, congratulations on 10 years. I'm sure it'll be bigger and better than ever for the 10th anniversary. I want to dive a little bit deeper into your partnerships with the government departments, because I think notoriously the government processes are difficult to manage. They're tricky. They're sometimes hard to understand. And since you've done such amazing work with the city of Oakland, I would love to hear you talk a little bit about how you have navigated those processes, maybe through your relationships or something else. Maybe you have a task list of how you go through that. But I would love for you to talk us through a little bit of navigating the tricky government processes.
Yeah. So permits are just very difficult. You gotta cross your T's and dot your I's. If you don't do that, things get delayed even more and more. And I've learned the hard way. Building a relationship, start joking with them, like, "Oh, come on, you can do this," and because they're protecting their job too, as well as I should be protecting mine. Let's do things the right way. So we definitely build a stronger relationship by me doing the right things. Um, Multiple government businesses, like we have alcohol, tobacco, we have alcohol, beverage control, ABC. We have the health department. We have the fire department. Every department I have to deal with individually, and then I have to deal with everybody collectively as a whole, because we're all doing this thing for the right reasons. And I'm grateful to learn the right things instead of trying to take a shortcut. Sometimes, we tie our shoe with using bunny ears, but then you have to wrap those bunny ears. If you don't wrap it, it unravels.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want your shoes to unravel, because then you may trip and fall. Well, that's the same situation with my filling out permits. You don't want it to unravel, because then you get delayed and things may not go the way you want it to go.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Don't shortcut anything. And I would imagine once you go through the process, you learn so much. You learn who you have to talk to, what their priorities are, how long something takes. Do you have any sort of system, like a task list or a checklist, because you do this once a month, that you go through? Like, how do you manage that with so many different people that you have to talk to?
I do have a checklist. I got 4 of us on the team that we definitely kind of look over everybody's shoulders. I'm at the final end of the rope where I just say, hey, this is what has to be done. My checklist is humongous. It doesn't stop. And I'm not planning for one festival. I'm planning for 4 or 5 ahead of time, so that I don't fall back behind. And it can happen. You can fall back easily, but you definitely want to be prepared and try to keep on your task. I do have a checklist that I go through every single month, even though it's the same one over and over. It's still making sure I cross my T's and dot my I's. Cross my I's.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Don't shortcut things. Document that process. Make sure you're following it, and then think as far in advance as you can. I think especially when dealing with local governments, the earlier you get started, the better. So I appreciate that, Greg. I got one last question for you,
Sure.
and that's, what's on the horizon for Oakland First Fridays? What are y'all up to aside from the 10-year anniversary?
Well, let's see. We recently got a phone call from the city of Paris, and they're the next door city to Paris. They've named their chapter 93 Oak from Oakland. They're in Paris, and they got a nonprofit, and they're teaching students how to become brick and mortar owners, any type of dream they may follow. Their students, they flew out here first Friday, and now we are building a relationship to where we have the mayors are going to talk to bring over the students to Oakland, and they want to take students from Oakland, ship them over to Paris so they both can learn. It's about a 10-month program we're trying to run together. We're still in the middle of talking and getting everything lined out, because finances still have to be worked out. You can't just fly a student over there and he has nothing to eat, doesn't know where he's living or staying. So we're working on that right now as we talk, and we're just really grateful. A lot of the outer countries follow First Friday, and it's amazing to see that they'll plan their vacation around the First Friday. So they'll come to Oakland only on the First Friday. So it looks like we have a lot more out of towners, which builds those hotels like we talked about. We're really grateful to see 9 out of the 11 people that came last Friday were students who cried when they had to leave Oakland First Fridays because they definitely didn't want to go. We showed them from the beginning to end. I introduced them to some of the mayor candidates. The mayor candidates were just overwhelmed and really happy to see what we're trying to do and bring forth. And now they're really for it. So whoever wins the mayor candidate, hopefully they remember our conversation and push forward so they can make that phone call to the Paris mayor of that city that we're talking with. And they'll be back, I think, in about 2 months. But we're going to start processing things over again and make sure we have the right, following the right things, crossing our T's and dotting our I's to make sure that this goes forth and really truly amazing to
Great.
see.
That is incredible. Not that Oakland wasn't on the map to begin with.
Right.
The fact that Paris, like one of the biggest, most popular cities in the world, is reaching out to you, to Oakland First Fridays, to show them what you've been doing here is such a testament to the impact that you've had on the city, to the community that you're building, and it's getting recognition internationally. And it's so cool that you are about to partner with them to train some students here and to have some Oakland students be over in Paris as well for, you said 10 months is really incredible. Congratulations. It's so exciting.
Thank you. They're actually going to book entertainment also from our side. So we're going to take painters, entertainment, brick and mortars, vendors, and we're going to try to swap. They're going to build a First Friday, so they want us to make sure we're there for their First Friday. I tell them there's no way they can do that. That's only 12-hour difference. I got to be at Vine. I can't leave Vinehagen and then get to yours, but we'll figure it out, and maybe somebody can take a break.
Yeah. Well, Greg, best of luck with that partnership. We are out of time, unfortunately, for now, but we're going to be back for the live Q&A. So I appreciate you hanging with us, and I'll see you in a bit.
See you in a little while. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you again, Greg. You really left me with some solid advice. And the first one is always create a checklist of tasks that you need to complete when partnering with government departments, especially for repeating events. This can really help you take the guesswork out of that partnership. And then, of course, triple check your paperwork. The biggest holdup when working with local governments is faulty paperwork. So make sure that yours is really buttoned up. And then I also really liked the point around setting your vendors up for success. They're often the first interaction that an attendee has with your event. So you want to make sure that they're organized, they're happy, and they're excited because they will be representing your event for you. All right, it's time for our final speaker, Alan Vinogradov. Alan's journey began on a trip in Tokyo where he found a unique pair of sneakers and resold them on eBay. From there, a business was born, and in 2009, he created the first ever SneakerCon in New York City. And there have since been over 100 SneakerCons in 30 different cities, delighting hundreds of thousands of sneakerheads around the globe. Please join me in welcoming SneakerCon's founder, Alan Vinogradov. Alan, it's great to see you, and welcome to Reconvene Sessions.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you about engaging corporate sponsors. But I think before we get into that, would love just a little bit of background on SneakerCon, like where it started and where it's at today.
For sure. So when we started SneakerCon in 2008, we were kids lining up for shoes. Our passion was sneakers. We were in the community, whether it was lining up for shoes or chatting on message boards, and our life was all about sneakers. And rather than having a place of, meeting in line at a sneaker store and worried about the next guy in front of you or the person behind you getting the shoes that you're going after, we wanted to create a really wholesome environment where the community can gather, people from the culture can be together around sneakers, and what we were able to establish in 2008 was SneakerCon. We brought out people from all over the country that just wanted to gather around shoes. And fast forward a few years later, we were doing events in New York City for quite a while, and we decided to take the next step forward. We went to Washington, D.C. and Miami, and then that kind of triggered a whole wave of traveling across the country with our show. Not every show out of the gate was successful, but for us, that didn't matter. We really love the community we were in. So if we were going out to Miami and meeting 1,200 sneakerheads that we never knew before, that was great. And that's kind of how we built our community and our event. We then went international in 2017. We kicked off with doing an event in London. London really was our gateway to going to Australia, China, Japan, and now we're planning over 30 events for 2023. We're very passionate about our community, and we're very passionate about the space that we're in.
That's awesome to see, and really not that long of a time, such like phenomenal success. Give us a sense of the scale. Like, what's your average kind of attendance number at your events?
Sure. So we just wrapped up San Francisco Bay Area. We did an event that hosted over 8,000 people. That is our average size. Some of our bigger events, like LA earlier this year, was 20,000 people. We've done shows in Shanghai with 20,000 people. So it really varies. And then we're also not only about hosting big number, in terms of attendance, we're also mindful of some communities need time to develop. So if we do like a Germany or a smaller event in the US, let's say in Memphis, those will be 1,500 to 3,000 people. Those shows are important for us because community building, it really starts in the smaller markets, and you kind of develop a really interesting community that decides to travel to other markets with you. So we found a passion point for hitting all of these different types of cities.
Gotcha. That's awesome that there's such variety. You don't do one thing, and I love that idea of starting small, developing a community, and then growing that community. So I want to get into your work with partners, and when you're working at the scale that you're working on, I would imagine that you have a few different levels and types of partners. Could you tell us a little bit about like the different types or categories of partners that you look for?
For sure. So in terms of partnerships, we have a lot of different ways we look at it. You'll have your kind of endemic partners, people that are, or brands, I should say, that are in the space, that are speaking to the community actively. Those partners are really important to us, right? Those are the up and coming kind of sneaker customizers, sneaker cleaning products. There's many types of partners within the space that have developed over the years. It wasn't as robust as it was. It just got robust much more than it was years ago. Like the communities develop, so you see a lot more product developed. And the next type of partner is our corporate partners that we work with. We have a great partnership with eBay and Monster. They have been with us for years now. We've developed really strategic relationships with them. They are very much engaged in our community. They value our community, and their goal is to contribute to our community. And then the third type of partner are different celebrity partners that we work with that add value to our community and want to be part of it. We don't really work with someone just because they're a big name. We work with people who may have a big name but are really passionate about sneakers. So there's definitely levels of criteria those individuals need to hit in order for us to kind of give it our sign of approval, and that's something that also kind of takes time to develop. But all three of those partners are our main focus at SneakerCon.
Got it. I love that breakdown of endemic partners, your strategic, your corporate partners, and then those celebrity partners. And for a moment, I want to focus on those corporate partners because I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like those are the hardest ones to land. And you mentioned some big ones that you work with: Monster Energy, eBay. What would you say is the biggest value that events and event creators can provide to those types of brands?
So I think at the end of the day, it's really identifying and being honest with what you're creating and understanding that the space that you're in, are you fulfilling a need for a specific type of community or a specific type of industry? And then from there, looking at who are the biggest contributors in the space. And I'm not talking about financial contributors, I'm talking about really having a dedicated spirit towards the culture or the community that you cater to. So in SneakerCon's case, like eBay, they're the reason why we, the founders of SneakerCon, like got together. Like we literally all met through eBay, like doing transactions. And that was like such an easy fit. And there was a really organic relationship to be formed there. So that made it easy for us to kind of go after that relationship and tell them and show them like this is what your company has created, right? These relationships, and we think it will be very important for your company to play a role in this space. Now, we've had other corporate partners like, T-Mobile, Sprint, we've had Instagram. Those are all, big companies, and they have their strategic value that they may offer. But eBay and Monster in particular, who we've been working with for a few years now, both of them, they all had significant contributions to the community. So that made it a very easy conversation over time. But these conversations still take significant amount of time. They are not kind of a one-off thing where we sat down and figured things out. It was really just building up and identifying what are the areas that we can add value to their businesses on.
Right. It's about a connection to the community that they're looking to have connection with. And I'm curious to hear your take on, like, eBay is such a digital brand. What's your take on the value that like a live experience provides to a giant digital corporation like an eBay? Like, is there anything, what's so special about bringing, that community together in real space through a live experience?
So live experiences are, from my perspective, a very integral part to any brand strategy. And the reason for that is it gives brands a pulse on what's really going on and understanding um, their customer and potential customers, the live feedback, the ability to showcase new products, ability to showcase new technologies. These are things that are instant, right? Like these are live conversations. You can create as many surveys as you want and, funnel them through whatever outlets that may cater to the same type of audience, but you don't have that ability to bounce questions off and understand and refine. That's one component to it. The next component is brands and different corporate partners that activate at events. They really are respected within that community. So when eBay is at SneakerCon and they're authenticating products on site, people really respect that. There are no other companies out there that are showing the craft and demonstrating how to actually verify whether or not these shoes are authentic or not, or are shoes that the companies actually produce. So giving the ability for the consumer to see the product in action, especially something that is on the digital front, is a real advantage to many different companies that are behind the screen. And then in terms of the most important thing, I think it's showing that they are integrated into the community rather than kind of standing on the outside or having the inside access. The way we kind of like look at ourselves at SneakerCon is we're the individuals waiting outside the sneaker store trying to get in. We're not the people that are inside that may have access. We are on the outside, and we hear the discussions and we hear everything that's happening that can potentially be beneficial to the culture. And you know, a lot of the companies that do play a role in our space, they are part of it, and they are become integral to it, and contributors. So rather than extracting and trying to just benefit financially from a community, they're also giving a lot, and that comes in many different forms.
Right. And you create that opportunity by having SneakerCon. And that's what other event creators can do for brands as well. It's a great way to communicate their value by creating that opportunity for deeper relationship building within you know, their target audience. So that's awesome. I appreciate that perspective. All right, I'm going to transition a little bit. Let's put ourselves in a scenario where, you know, you have the attention of, let's say, a new corporate brand partner. What is your advice for going about building and managing that relationship from the start?
So that's a great question, and I think it's more of art blended with a science, right? Like, it has to be something that is organic. Like, I don't think a lot of corporate partners are looking for a cookie cutter like naming rights and they're done. I really believe that it comes down to curating and managing a relationship and building out what that funnel looks like what are the opportunities, what does a roadmap look like. And it really starts out small. You know, Monster is a significant partner of ours. They started with one event, and it was all about managing expectations and saying, look, this is going to be a great event. We want Monster to come in and get exposed to it, but it's your first event. Like, people won't know what you're doing. And you know, we had 3 months to prepare for this. It wasn't, you know, a full year. We didn't really get the working relationship. So also just setting expectations that, you know, this is something we're looking to build, and also being modest around it. When you see a corporate partner, it isn't about maximizing financial opportunity right out of the gate. You really need to build the value and prove that whatever you're creating is going to be beneficial to them, and the audience that you're catering to is going to deliver a ROI to this brand or this company. And ultimately that's the science part, right? And you want to be able to lay out a framework for these brands where they can understand how your brand can integrate them. In addition to that, how can they integrate into your brand? So it really is a lot of work. I don't want to undersell it. At the same time, you really need to be able to manage those relationships and build strong relationships for them to go beyond, you know, one event. You know, that's obviously the goal if you are engaged with a company.
Right. I appreciate that perspective, because it's about, like, when you would normally get excited, you got the attention of a big brand, you're like, oh, we're going to blow this out, we're going to do something huge and big. But it's really maybe the better approach to start small, prove that value, build that relationship, and then begin to scale up. So that's really great advice, and I appreciate that, Alan. And I think that's all the time that we have right now. I definitely have a ton more questions for you, and we have the live Q&A coming up. So I'll see you in a bit. Thank you so much for hanging with us, for spending a little bit of time and sharing your expertise with our event community.
For sure. Thank you for having me, Alex.
Thank you again, Alan. A couple things I took away. I really love the way that you categorize the types of partners you work with. You have your endemic partners. These are the brands that are already in the space and actively speaking to the community. You have your corporate partners, which are engaged brands that see value in that community. And then you have celebrity partners, who are the passionate and authentic influencers within the scene. And you also gave us great perspective on the value that event creators can provide to brands. And this really should be part of any pitch deck. You know, you said that live experiences are integral to brand strategies because they allow companies to gain a deeper understanding of who their customers are. Events create the opportunity for live feedback and discussion, product demos, and more engagement that you just won't be able to have through an online survey. And live experiences also help brands earn trust and respect with customers by truly integrating into their community. It's awesome. And then you also emphasize the importance of starting small and modestly when you're working with a new partner. Christina said it before, really set those expectations and goals. And financial goals are probably not the thing that you're starting off with. So be clear and be confident about demonstrating the value of your event. Try to prove it on that small scale, and then the brands will be coming back even more eager to scale up. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers, and I want to bring them onto our virtual stage so we can ask them some of your questions. So let's welcome them and keep dropping your questions in the chat. Hello, everyone. It's so great to see you again.
Hello, hello.
All right, I'm going to get right into it because we don't have too much more time, but we have a ton of really solid questions from our audience today. And the first one, there were actually a few around this topic, around initiating partnership interactions. And there was the question of like, is an email enough? What to include in that email? Do you try to get an in-person a meeting? And Christina, this was initially posed to you, so I would like to start with you, but then Alan and Greg would love your thoughts on this afterwards around how do you initiate the partnership interactions? What are the channels and what are the styles of the communications?
Yeah, I think if you're going to start via email, make sure that it's really thoughtful and personal. Like you have a touchstone, a personal connection, start with that, and then be very direct in your ask, because I always find it a little like annoying when I'm just like, what are you trying to get at here? Like, tell me directly. Like, and then I can say, yes, I think it's a fit. Like, let's chat more. Or no, I don't. And then we both save each other time.
Got it. So an email is a fine place to start. Try to have that warm connection and just be really specific. Don't beat around the bush. Ask for what you're looking for. Alan, Greg, curious if either one of you have any advice on like starting the interactions with potential partners.
I think trying to figure out a way to establish FaceTime is always the best kind of introduction. It makes things a lot more real. I think obviously an email inviting them to your event, when people see what your event is about and you can greet them and spend time with them and walk them through the vision, I think that builds a lot of credibility for what you're doing.
Yeah, I must agree. I'd prefer to be in person. So then my proof in the pudding is what we've done in the past, to show them what we can also do in the future together. So that you're absolutely right. You guys are both 100% on it. On top of it.
And I think that's a really important point that might be obvious, but if you're looking for a partnership, get that potential partner to your event. That is the best way. The best marketing that you can do is having a successful event. And I've experienced that there's just a different energy when you're in the space, and they'll see that value a little bit more clearly. So hopefully that answers the question that came from Kira and a few others. Next question, Greg, this one is for you. And this one comes from Tay BP. And they say that they love the work that you're doing. They're starting a storytelling festival in Philly next year. And they would love to hear you talk a little bit about how you reflect the values of the Oakland community in your event.
Being that I live in the area, I try to tie things that are happening around the area throughout the months and bring it back to the festival so that I can tie it. If I don't like it, I would think a lot of people don't like it as well. Or I try new things that the culture has been showing throughout the months. So I just gather information from watching the news, paying attention to the surroundings and what's going on in the areas, and just kind of gather it back together so I can make sure it makes sense to everybody, or it makes sense to the ones that I think that we're going after to show. And it also helps with sponsorships, because now those sponsorships that are in the area also see that I'm paying attention to what you've been doing, or I can help you grow with some of the stuff that you're trying to get out there as well. It happens every single day. There's something out there on the news that gives you the great information, for me at least. That's one of the reasons why I watch the news.
Right. Yeah, that idea of being current and
Yeah,
making sure that you're adapting, not doing the same thing month after month, kind of like adapting to how the scene and the local city is changing as well. So I love that.
yes.
All right, next question. I'm gonna steal a question and ask one that I have, and I'd love Alan to direct this towards you, but then Greg and Christina would love to hear if you have any experiences as well. I'm curious if you can tell us about a partnership that didn't really work out. Maybe it wasn't like a complete flop, but like you did something one year and then you didn't end up coming back next year. Like, do you have an example of that? And could you speak to why it didn't work and what you may have learned from that experience?
Yeah, so we had activation from Instagram in 2018. It was around the time they launched the hashtag, and it was really like a well curated experience that they developed. It was, beautiful activation. What they were really missing, though, was understanding who our community was. So they chose like really kind of extravagant hashtags that really didn't apply to our culture and community. They haven't attended an event before, and they kind of used like hashtags of like beautiful shoes, and it was like a shoe that looked like a peacock, right? And a lot of people just didn't see it, didn't understand it was too artistic. We were like, on our recap, we are like, we should have did like extreme sizes, like size 25, and source some of like the most famous shoes in the biggest sizes possible, right? Like they didn't have that connection to our community yet, and we take the blame on that, right? Like we don't really push it on them. We wish that we were a little bit more proactive in guiding and giving them a vision of what we believe they should do, and at least arming them with the tools to be successful. So that really taught us to be like proactive and as engaged as possible with our partners to make sure they're successful.
Yeah, I like that. And it's actually come up in some previous reconvene sessions, the idea of like really being confident that you're the expert. Like even when you're working with a huge brand like Instagram, they're coming to you because they see value in your partnership. And I think that often it's easy to be like, oh, they're the expert, they're the big brand with all the big money, like I got to do what they want to do. But you're really the one that knows the community and knows how to create that successful partnership. So you got to be confident, be proactive. I love that.
Right, exactly. I'll go next then. I had a large company that came in that said they wanted to sponsor for 3 months. I don't even wish to say their name, but they said they were coming in for 3 months. They showed up for 1 month and never popped back up ever again. Never answered the phone call, never showed up to the festival, gave their money and walked away. And my community every community on this telecast spends a lot of money with this company. And it was just a little odd to see that they wouldn't even pick up the phone to say thank you. Like we made signage for them. We put it in the front of the festival. When you walked in, the first thing you saw was them. And throughout the festival, we did a bunch of other things for them. And then main stage, we were announcing, hey, we got XYZ in the house. Thank you for doing what you do. Everybody uses you. We're appreciative. And it came from the mayor of Oakland. So it was like a big, yeah, the mayor gave us the connection. And we were like, shake hands, let's go. I'm so happy you guys know about us. We're in Washington, D.C. today. We're not coming. Oh, okay. And then that was the end of conversation. Headquarters in San Francisco, so not quite sure what took place, but we still haven't. I'm still working on trying to get them back into the picture just to see hello, and let's have some kind of conversation. Maybe we can revise what we had in place. And it was a little weird.
Greg, do you have any sense of why they maybe weren't as invested and engaged as you would have expected?
I don't know. Everything they requested, like you said, we go above and beyond the call of duty for some of the larger funding for festivals or for anything that we're putting together. and then they don't speak at all. So it's kind of hard to read someone's mind that never. I was so excited, weeks, like we talked for weeks to put this in place, and they accepted all the things. We got to the legal department, we talked to the legal, and everybody was happy. And turned out at the end of the day, it was nothing to bring them back, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I guess
But, I mean, life goes on. Like there's so many more
not everything is going to be a home run.
Exactly,
and that's important to keep in mind as well.
Yeah.
Christina, how about you? Any partnerships that maybe didn't go as well as you planned?
Yeah, I think there was one. We had a series of construction, and it affected not necessarily our all of our programs, but we had this house at Governor's Island, which is like a little kind of like little island off of Lower Manhattan, and there's like bike riding and all these like organizations that have houses there, and they run programs. But we decided to partner because we're like, oh, we aren't currently in our space because of this construction, but it didn't really tap the community that we serve. So it's kind of that thing of just like, oh, like they're offering us this free space and like we could do all these things, but it didn't really serve us in the end as much because like it wasn't really our priority community. And I think it was a good thing to learn. And we were super grateful for the space. But I think all in all, like the efforts that we made to make that happen, I think we could have just not done the program. And I think that's so fine, just to be like, we're going to take a pause at this moment.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate y'all indulging me. I think it's always interesting to acknowledge that it's not always like sunshine and rainbows, that sometimes things go wrong and like what you do with them. So thank you for that. Next question, Christina, I'm going to go back to you. This one might be a quick one. It comes from Flavored Fork. Love that name. Are there any particular grant databases that you'd recommend reviewing for nonprofits?
Yeah, GuideStar is a great one that you can use on a free subscription. You can just kind of, like I said, like check the bibliographies. You can look at other nonprofits 990s and see where they're getting their funding sources. You can subscribe to P&D and get a newsletter that's like really helpful. Somebody, I think maybe Flavor Fork put in there, Candid is an option, or ProPublica. Yeah, so lots of great resources out there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I hope Flavored Fork, that answers your question. Next one, Greg, this is back to you. And this one comes from two folks, Jenny and Mark. They ask, Greg, I'm curious how big your team is putting on something with so many attendees. What does it look like behind the scenes? Do you have someone on the team that's dealing with permits and government folks, et cetera? And then there was a follow-up question around how many volunteers you have.
So we have a team of 4. It's 4 of us, plus my executive director and the executive assistant. So we'd say 6. It's 6 of us total. We all wear different hats. I have someone that deals with the marketing. I have someone that deals with permits, which is myself. I also deal with every situation dealing with city officials down to the bottom. I deal with entertainment as well, bookings. I have someone that deals with account management, which deals with all the vendors, and they put things in place in building the map. And then there's one other person that does some other stuff as well. But that small team is just incredible because every single month after the first Friday, which is tomorrow, we start all over again on Monday. It's like, erase what you just did. Let's start fresh. It doesn't matter what happened. Let's make sure we don't do it again. And volunteers, man, it can go from 5 volunteers sometimes to 30. Last month we had 36, and it was a school of high school students that just decided to come together and help First Fridays. And they may be coming back this month, I hope, because that's building a relationship with the unified school districts and things, and trying to get programs into certain schools, because the schools out there have programs for the youth that will allow them to, they have vendor programs, they build and make craft and arts and situations. So that's stuff that we deal with every single day. So we try to include the youth because that is our future. Yeah, the last part of the question was, I'm sorry.
You touched on it. It was volunteers.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate that. Small, scrappy team. You do a ton, and I love bringing on some volunteers. Is there a follow-up question for me? Is there anything you do to market to volunteers? Anything special that, like, you say, like, hey, we're here, you can come get involved?
So we used to give away T-shirts. That got expensive. Then we ran out of sizes, and then we were like, hey, we got a small, which didn't fit, or it was too big, or whatever may happen. And then now we just send out emails and say, hey, we really need help. This is what we need. Be honest and upfront. Can you do this? Can you help us with this? Or choose a specific place you want to be so we can place you. If you're 21 and over and we have a bar, come on. If you want to learn how to do it, we don't mind showing you. Person that's in charge of that section will come out and we'll place vendor or volunteer management. We'll have somebody overlooking everybody. They come back together and they, kind of report what's going on. We have runners. We have people that deal with donations at the front gate, and then we have stagehands. So I mean, we have people everywhere. Somewhat, some days, and some days we don't have anybody, and then we're all okay. I'll take this. So you take this, and we'll out of the team of 6, we'll try to make it happen. And then end of the night, we'll just be like, whew, we did it. Let's try it again next month, but let's work a little harder on the volunteer side. So yeah. It just depends.
You got to work with what you have, but I really like, and I think it's a great idea to kind of like break out and be clear about what the volunteer opportunities are, like be specific about what tasks there are to do so that people can sign up to be like, hey, like I want to volunteer for Oakland First Fridays, but I really don't want to be welcoming people at the door.
Right.
And like, you don't want to lose that volunteer. You want to engage them in another way. And like by outlining all of the different activities that they can sign up for is a way to keep them interested.
Finding the best of what they're good at.
Yeah.
That would work a little less harder. If you trying to stick me somewhere I'm not comfortable, then I'm going to give you a half job, and that makes it harder for you because now you're watching this person. Come on. You're trying to push them, and they're not loving what they're doing. They wanted to be somewhere else, and you had that opportunity for them. Just kind of understanding what's available.
Totally. All right. We have time for one more question, and I want to ask you all the same question that I asked our audience at the top of the event, and that is who is your ideal partner, whether it's a brand, another event organization, an individual. I'm curious if y'all have a pie in the sky idea of someone that you'd love to work with. And Alan, I'd love to start with you with that question.
I mean, we're in the sneaker business, so we're really passionate about our space and the people that have created the legacy of what brings us all together. And obviously, I would have to say Michael Jordan being like the GOAT and founder of many aspects. Like if there's a way that SneakerCon can ever touch him directly, it would be a dream come true for me and my team.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't made his way there already.
Right. Yeah.
Soon, hopefully.
Hopefully. We'll make it happen. Jordan, come on now.
Make it happen.
Greg, how about you?
Man, we have so many aspects. I mean, from Kaiser to Spotify, I take them all. I'll take them all. I have the shooting for the Kaiser because I'm building a health zone. I want to make sure things are in the right perspective, and Kaiser has so many avenues where people need to understand what we have available. From entertainment, Spotify has artists that we can make it because everything is free for me. So we're throwing a free event every single month. So Spotify can place a new artist that hasn't been seen, who gets to perform for 30,000 people. Most of the time, no one. It's not a small little bar that holds 500. We're talking about 30,000 roughly every single month, and it's incredible to see. So I would love from A to Z. I mean, everybody is my dream.
Yeah, I love that. And I do know that Pandora has an office in Oakland. So if Spotify doesn't answer,
reaching out to them. No luck yet. So if you have a connection, let's talk.
Anybody got a connection with Pandora for Greg? Let us know. Christina, how about you? Finish this off.
I might also steal Greg's and say Spotify because, we're in the business of highlighting and supporting artists. So I think that would be one way to support our musicians. And then also, bringing our artists out of our space and into like public realm. So like a public art firm or, anyone working in that.
Christina, let's tag team together and jump on.
Let's do it.
Love it.
In the country.
All right. Well, y'all, that's all the time that we have today. I really appreciate you spending the morning and the afternoon with us. Everybody, let's send our speakers off with some love. Thank you all so much for being with us today, and look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, these three amazing speakers, Greg, Christina, Alan, thank you again. You have left us with some really valuable takeaways about building strategic partnerships for events. And we're going to do a full recap of today's conversation and the key takeaways for everybody in the audience today. So keep an eye out in your inbox, as well as on the Eventbrite blog, to access recordings from today's conversations, as well as summaries of those key takeaways by our editors. I want to thank you all for hanging with us for a little bit, engaging with us in the chat and asking your questions. If you haven't seen it already, our team is sharing a survey link. We really appreciate your feedback on today's session so that we can continue to improve and make these more useful to all event creators. And I'll plug one more time, if you plan on sharing anything from today's experience on social media, let's use our hashtag RECONVENE so we can all see it. We'll spread the love on our socials as well. And if you have any questions relating to the Eventbrite platform, you can check out our help center for answers to all of your technical needs. And then lastly, just the best way to stay in the loop on all of our community program, upcoming Reconvene sessions and other events that we're hosting at Eventbrite. You should follow Eventbrite's organizer profile on the Eventbrite platform, and then also follow us on social media. We're at Eventbrite Organizers on Instagram and Facebook. We'd love to keep the conversation going. But that's it for today. We'll see you all soon. Thank you so much.